Okay. So, this is Marnie. I am the host of this summit, and this half hour was originally supposed to be Tammy Whitehurst, and she is right now in the hospital with her husband, who's they're with someone close to them who is passing away right now. So, then we kind of hoped that maybe Angela could join us. Angela Donadio has a new book that just released yesterday called Brave, and I was hoping that she could maybe be here with us to talk about that book. However, she was not able to join us either. And of course, that is not her fault at all. I'm going to just use this as just a shameless marketing for her book. I'm going to share the screen in just a moment here. But I want you to know that that's why Tammy isn't here. For those of you who wanted to be in Tammy's session, I'm so sorry. And she's so sad she can't be here. She totally would have been here. But one of the things I like to do as a mentor is I like to remind you, woman of God, that it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to meet every promise you make. You're not going to. One of the most obvious ones for me, I gave a devotion at our pastor's daughter's bridal shower. And I told the story there that I wanted her to remember as she was married and trying to keep all of her promises, and her husband was trying to keep all of his promises, because you know what? We can't. We simply can't. And I told the story of when they were first to town, and we took them out on our boat, and we also had watercraft. So her mother and I were on the big, beautiful, luxurious watercraft. I called it the Cadillac because it was so steady. It was so easy to drive. It was just comfortable. And my husband worked for a watercraft designer at the time, and so we got these for free. And so we took them out on the boat in the watercraft, and we went across the lake. We lived on Lake of the Woods in northern Minnesota at the time. We took them all the way across the lake to a restaurant over there for lunch. They were new to our city, new to our church, and we just wanted to welcome them. But she had told me that she was afraid of the water. And I said, well, you don't have anything to worry about, because this watercraft is so great. I mean, it is like, I don't really love the water myself. I kind of get seasick usually. And so I just loved that machine, though. It was so stable. It was so good and so trustworthy. And so we went across the lake and we had lunch, and the kids were playing in the water, and we were just hanging out at the restaurant, having a nice Sunday afternoon. And all of a sudden we looked across the lake and we saw the clouds piling up. And what that meant, because of how that particular lake was, that meant that it would be, all of a sudden it would release and it would rush across the water. So we gathered everybody up quickly and we said, well, it's time for us to get going back home. So we gathered everybody up. They got in the boat. Her and I, the mom, the daughter, and I got on the watercraft, and off we went across the water. And when we were about 2/3 of the way back to shore in the United States, we'd gone across Canada and back into the United States to get to the restaurant. When we were back almost to the shore, we were quite a way out still, but not terribly far. And we got back, and all of a sudden I saw something I had never seen before. All of a sudden, all around me on the water, it went from just being water, it went to being water that was doing this strange thing that I had never seen. It was like it was water, but it was also moving in a way that I had never seen before. And I was like, what's going on? I don't understand what I'm seeing. And all of a sudden, like that, the raging wind was on us. And it was so terrible. It was like the waves were bigger than the watercraft. It would come completely over the top of us. It was awful. And it was so terrifying for me. And I was just used to being on the water, let alone this poor pastor's wife, who I promised wouldn't even get wet. We got to the dock and we got off the watercraft. We were all just drenched from head to toe. We're standing on the dock thinking, where is the boat? Where is the boat? And the boat was not coming. Finally, we're standing there. It was cold. We were standing there shivering, dripping wet. And finally a car drives up, and it's a friend of ours. And he says, the the engine got knocked out of the boat. So the waves were so big that when the boat went up one time, it came down and it hit rock, and the back end of the boat went out. So they were stranded out there in the boat, and we were on the dock. He took us home to our house. We all got hot showers and warmed up. But this story at her bridal shower, and this story for you, this story for Tammy White, has the story for anyone who has ever had a disappointment. And maybe you're disappointed right now that Angela or Tammy isn't here. But I'm just telling you, your life is going to have disappointments. You're going to actually break promises to people. It's going to happen, not because you mean it to happen. You might be the most responsible person ever. In fact, Tammy Whitehurst, after all of her years of speaking, she's been with womenspeakers.com, I don't know, over a decade maybe. And I remember when she just started, and now she does main stages all over the world, really. And I just remember that this goes forward, and she said this is the first engagement she has had to cancel like this. And so, no matter how faithful you are, at some point, this moment might come for you too, when you promise to do something that you can't do. And what I want you to know is that God knew it was going to happen. God totally knew. He absolutely 100% knew. And so I want you to know that he loves you, that he cares for you, that he is here for you, that he is just loving you all along the way. Okay, I am going to right now, just kind of on the fly here, because I didn't really expect to be doing this. I am going to share my screen. And what am I going to share here? Entire screen, maybe. Let's see. I am going to actually share a Chrome tab. Nope, I'm going to have to share my entire screen. Sorry. And let's see if we can do that. And I'm over here to Amazon. And I just bought Angela's book yesterday, so I know it is here. Donadio, that's spelled wrong. Donadio. I think this is going to take us here. It's here. We'll see. Let's see. Am I spelling it wrong? Donadio? Audio. Where are you, Angela? Brave enough. There we are. I don't like that they don't put her first one. That's clearly her name. Anyway, this is Angela's new book. So I'm excited that even she can't be here right now. I'm excited that I get to share this with you. I want to tell you the story behind this book. No, it's not the story behind this book. The story behind this book is Angela's to tell. But I want to tell you, and I want to just show you here. Angela is just an amazingly wonderful person. And she's very famous, in fact. Her book came out yesterday, and mine is the only ranking that's here. I don't understand this. I don't understand why she doesn't have 50 people standing with her saying, yes, go. Tell us this. We need this information. If you want to do something for me, for the kingdom, go buy this book and write a good review for it. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great book. She wrote it with her dad, if you can believe it. How cool is that? Brave enough to believe. Anyway, so I wanted to just tell you what happened in November. And let me see here if I can put this slide up here with me. So on Monday, my book is coming out in all these different versions, in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and it should be coming out in a workbook also by Monday. And it's called Spiritual Growth. And this has been one of the hardest, I would say for sure, absolutely, the hardest ask that God has ever placed on my life was to write a book that didn't clearly define Jesus as the answer. Because I don't even breathe without Jesus. I can't talk without Jesus in the sentences. For me to shut that part of me down, to actually have that be under a bushel for a minute, is just really hard. And I do it all the time, actually. I do it when someone doesn't want to talk about Jesus. I just love them and I talk about what they want to talk about. So it's not like I'd never do it. I do it. But to write a book doing it, that was really painful, super painful for me. And God asked me to do this immediately before I went to Angela's collectives, Communicators Collective conference. And that whole conference was incredible. First of all, I had made mistakes about it. I had misunderstandings about where it was when I agreed to go. And here it was like a 10-hour drive instead of the 3 hours I thought it was. I don't know what, God just let me misunderstand that. And then when it was a 10-hour drive, then I was like, okay, so can Dave come with or can somebody come with? And God's like, you have to have this time alone. So I ended up doing it all by myself. On the way back, there was a hurricane, so I couldn't get home, which took me on a different trajectory, which landed me in my son's house, where we had a wonderful time. This whole thing was so God orchestrated, but God knew that I couldn't say yes to this particular I could not say yes to this particular ask because it was just too hard for me to say, yes, I would write this book without Jesus being the answer. It's like I just had to talk about 20 different religions and talk about, living life, but without Jesus as the answer. And it's like, how can I do that? I cannot do it. And I was just flat out. I kept being on the floor, flat out. At one point, I was flat out on the floor in the worship center at Angela's conference. And I was just flat out. And she came over and she prayed with me. And then she picked me up off the floor. And she said, what's going on with you? And I said, God is asking me to write this book. First of all, I can't even stomach the idea of the book, let alone that I would write it, let alone that I would write it right now while I'm trying to put together this conference. I mean, the book was supposed to come out literally 3 months from when we were together right then. And it was like impossible to write a whole book that I've never even thought of and that I can't imagine writing in 3 months and have it come out. And she said, when is it supposed to come out? And I told her, she goes, well, that's right, when my book is supposed to come out. And I said, what's the name of your book? And she said, Brave Enough to Believe. And it was just like God just covered me with confirmation. And he said to my heart, God said to me, Marnie, are you brave enough to believe? And it was kind of the thing that locked in this new book for me. And I knew that it was God then. Then when it was time to leave the collective, I couldn't go home because there was a hurricane coming to my home. And so I couldn't drive into the hurricane. That would be stupid. So then I reached out to Dave and I said, my husband, and I said, honey, what do you think if I don't know what to do? So what if I tried to drive laterally over and maybe stay with Mark, see if I could stay with him for a couple days? And he said to me, wow, my friend and I were just praying the other day that one of us would be able to go hang out with, that you or I or both of us together, me and my husband, would be able to go hang out with our son. Just that we felt like we needed to do that. And he had just been praying with a friend the night before I asked him if that would be okay with him. And so God just directly answered Dave's prayer as well. Took me, had a great time with Mark, and then brought me home safely after the hurricane had passed and the roads were clear. So, God does all of these things for our benefit, but they're not easy. It's not like it's easy. My motto all of last year was, I get to say yes to God every single time. I get to say yes to God every single time. And having that I get to part in there really changed it for me, in that I actually had thought I was saying yes to God every single time. And I wanted to say yes to God every single time. But last year I had this, I get to say yes to God every single time. And I had this picture of a table, like a wedding gift table, all full of gifts, and how that these gifts that were on this table were for me. And God had prepared it before I was even born. He had this table full of gifts. And every time I said yes to him, I got a gift. And it might be for now, it might be for later, it might be for heaven, it might be for somebody else. But every time I say yes, I get a gift. And I started seeing it this way, and it made saying yes so much easier and so much more fun. And almost like I couldn't tolerate the thought of not saying yes. I was like, God would ask me to do this crazy hard thing, and I would just be like, oh. So like when it took me 10 of those days, when God asked me to write the book, Spiritual Growth, when it took me 10 of those days just to get to the yes, not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't stomach it. I just couldn't, and we see that in the Old Testament, right? Some of those poor prophets we see, they're like, I don't think I can do this. but they eventually say yes. And so if it takes a little while for you to say yes, don't worry about that. God knows exactly how many days you need. God knows exactly how many days you need. And the fact that this book is coming out at the same time, one week after this summit, is just absolutely incredible. It's truly amazing. My verse for this year, I'm so excited about it. John 1:16 in the Amplified Version. For out of his fullness we have all received one grace after another, and spiritual blessing upon spiritual blessing, and even favor upon favor, and gift heaped upon gift. It's John 1:16 in the Amplified Version. And you know that picture of the gift table? What happened last year is, as I was saying yes to God every single time, what happened is there wasn't just one gift table. No, my friends, the tables extend all the way out as far as I can see from left to right, the table full of gifts. That's how many gifts there are for us. And God is just asking you, will you say yes? Will you say yes to me? Will you just do what I ask you to do, even when you don't understand it? And I'm telling you, when he asked me to write this book, I did not understand it. It sounded like a death sentence to me. But when you get this book, and it goes for sale next week. Oh, and if you want to, do come over and participate in the launch group. I would just be so honored if you would join us in the launch group, helping get ready. One of the things you can do is you can download the manuscript there. And if you want to give an advance reference, that would be so helpful. And then if you want to buy a copy on the release day, I think the ebooks are going to be 99 or 2.99 cents, $2.99 or something. I don't know. It's going to be super cheap. Anyway, if you want to buy it and be a verified buyer and then give that review publicly as well, that would just be amazing and so helpful. If you want to review Angela's book, let me just share my screen one more time. I just want to honor her for hosting that event, and for including me in it in such a way that I had the privilege of getting the confirmation that I needed so that I could write mine. I mean, how crazy was it that God had her book coming out right at the same time as he wanted me to release this book? So I just think God does all things well. It's all very it's all very shocking and confusing, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I can honestly tell you today, at the end of writing the book and having it go through so many edits and renditions, and I believe in body life, and it just turned out amazing. And I'm no longer ashamed of it. I was so ashamed at first. I just couldn't imagine writing such a book. But I am not ashamed. I'm excited that God has flowed this particular work through me. And when I was talking to someone the other day, she just spoke a word of truth over me, and I can't remember who it was. And she said, this book is so needed right now, because she said she had just been at the grocery store and she had seen a new magazine called Spiritual Growth. Nothing about God, nothing about Jesus, all about just random false gods. And that's what this book is about. This book is about people that don't know that they're looking for Jesus. And so that's why he can't be featured as the answer, because they don't know they're looking for the answer. They think they're looking for something else. And so this book, please Jesus, this book is going to draw people to Jesus just based on the facts of what he has put in their hearts. It says in Daniel that God has put eternity in the hearts of man, that they cannot know what he has done from beginning to end. So God is calling every soul. He's calling you. He's calling everyone you know. Maybe you have a child or a loved one who has grown up in the church and left because they didn't feel like the church they saw, something hurt them. Somewhere along the way, they believed a lie about God or about Jesus, about you or about somebody else. And I just ask that you would keep praying for them. God loves them and is calling them. And then this book, Spiritual Growth, if you would help me get this out into the world, that would be so amazing. Support Angela, support the other speakers who have books here. If you have something you want to invest into one of the speakers, go buy her book and give her a good review. I mean, it makes a huge difference. So this hour was supposed to be so many different things. First, it was supposed to be Tammy, and then maybe Angela. And of course, neither of them failed us in any way. They're just doing what God called them to do right now. And I'm so excited that you are here. I think we have a couple more minutes. Victoria, do you want to join me on the screen just for a sec here?
Sure.
Great. And how about you have a wonderful book also? Your book title again?
I have a prayer journal that's called Undaunted, the prayer journal.
Undaunted.
And then I have an anthology that I have a little bit of my daughter's story in that I wrote with the late Linda Olson.
Yeah.
And that is called Story Matters.
Yeah. I was just thinking about Linda yesterday because Linda Olson was such an important person in our lives. And she passed very suddenly last year, leaving just a gigantic hole in our lives. She was the Story Matters lady. And she, her goal, I remember when she told me one year, so she's been with womenspeakers.com for a while. And then she told me, she said, Marnie, God has given me this audacious mission that I'm supposed to reach 1 million people with stories a year, 1 million people with story per year. And I said, Linda, how are you going to do that? And she goes, well, I don't exactly know, but God's going to do it. And she did. She did. And she needed to, because God knew when he was going to take her home, and it was much sooner than any of us imagined.
That's right.
You do not know how many minutes you have left, right? Your daughter, how old was she when Jesus took her home?
She was just shy of her 15th birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 11 days before her 15th birthday.
We never know, right? And my daddy, he passed away suddenly. And there is a reason why people go home early. I remember receiving the news that my dad had passed away with a phone call that just said, Marnie, your dad is dead. Click. That was the phone call I got. And I was so in shock. I was just in shock. But because I had learned to do danger, 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 Jesus, 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 I just started saying the name of Jesus over and over again. And I just said, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. My husband's walking me out to the van so we can head over to my parents' home. And I'm just saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And Victoria, before I even got to the van, it was less than 5 minutes after I got the news of my father's just sudden death, that God spoke to my heart, and he just said, Marnie, your dad got exactly what he asked for. And I was like, he did. Because my dad always would say, I have 3 sisters, and 2 of them are going to be here with me on the summit, one tomorrow night, one Friday night. But my dad would always say, he'd have us sit on his lap, one at a time. Oh, honey, I just don't want to get old and be a burden to you girls. If I had boys, it'd be different. But I got girls. I don't want to grow old and be a burden to you girls. And so when God comforted me with that thought, I thought, right, I didn't get what I wanted, but my dad got what he wanted. Yeah. And sometimes we don't get what we want, but dad gets what he wants.
That's right.
And that's the key, right? To focus on that.
That's
You've got a session coming up.
Yes, that's tomorrow at 4:30. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I get to share my acronym tomorrow also.
Yes, that's great. That's great. And you have been just an amazing support to me behind the scenes here this week. I'm so grateful for you. I have a whole team that hails from around the world. Victoria's my USA girl, but I've got artists and assistants and different people who are helping me from all around the world, from Philippines, India, Bangladesh. And I'm just so excited to be ministering to and working with women around the world. And for you gals who are here, whatever God is calling you to do, just say yes. Just say yes. Just say yes. And it's going to be what it is. Victoria, in your situation, I just want to talk about this for a moment. You had to say yes. You didn't have a choice. He took your daughter. So what was the yes in that situation when you didn't get the choice? Like Job, he didn't get a choice.
Right. The yes in the situation was to trust him.
Yeah.
As a mother, I want what's best for my daughter. As parents, that's what we want. Right. We want what's best for our kids, right? Yeah. And she knew Jesus.
Yeah.
And she struggled on this earth. We lived in and out of hospitals with her since she was a baby. But she had so much wisdom and taught me so much in that short 15 years. But I had to trust him that his plan was bigger, and he knew what was going to be best for her.
Mhm.
So that was my yes. It was hard. It still is hard.
Yeah.
This coming October will be 15 years.
Wow.
So that she's been
Yeah.
gone. It's so hard to believe she would be 30 this year.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
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 I always say that losing someone is kind of like having your arm cut off.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be a day when you don't miss it,
That's right.
but you do learn to live without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's so much still a part of my life.
Yeah.
Her story is what birthed my ministry. So,
Right.
her legacy
Right.
lives on. So
Right.
I do get to share her story when I speak. So it's great.
You didn't know you were going to be on the stage with me right now, and we haven't talked about any of this. This is
Nope.
just who you are. You're just available to Jesus all the time. I'm going to ask you, God has put another huge obstacle in your path right now. You're battling cancer right
Mhm.
as we speak.
Mhm.
And what is your yes to him right now in cancer?
To have faith,
Yeah.
to believe his promises in his word.
Yeah.
In Ephesians 15:26, it says, I am the Lord your God who heals you.
Yeah.
To have that kind of faith that the
Yeah.
woman had with the issue of blood, that all she wanted to do was just touch his cloak and she knew she would be healed. So that's my yes. I know that no matter what circumstances I have to go through, my purpose in the Great Commission doesn't change, and the
Right.
gospel story doesn't change. And
Right.
so I just take one day at a time with him right with me. Yeah. And just want his glory to be seen through the story.
Yeah. My sister, who is a cancer survivor, will be joining me tomorrow night at 7:00 talking about cancer. Cancer patients need your help now. Here's how. And she's a comedian. She's done stand-up comedy in bars. She's a teetotaler, but this is like so funny. It's like, what? This is you, my sister. But she's just hilarious. And she's also just got this heart of compassion for cancer patients. And when she was going through cancer, she kept saying, God, it's just such a win-win for me. If I
Yes.
stay, it's a win. If I go, it's a win. It's a win-win for me. Your will be done. You
Yes.
can heal me here or you can heal me there.
Yep.
Either way, I'm whole, right?
Yep. I've said that too.
Yeah. This is the confidence of a believer in God. And it's the confidence that a non-believer simply can't have.
Right, right. And I think about the Apostle Paul too. He talked about that. He said, if I die, that's to gain for me.
Right.
But if I live, that's what's better because I can continue to share your message.
Right.
And so, sometimes God allows these things to happen, but will continue to share his message even though.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am right now.
Yeah. Yeah. She calls it even if faith, based on the 3 Hebrew boys who said, we know that our God will save us, but O King, believe this one thing, even if he doesn't save us from the fire, he will still save us.
That's
And
right.
that is what we can say as a believer. Even if this thing doesn't turn out the way we hope, even if it's your life on the line, I mean, how do you get to that point of peace? But I see it in you. I've watched it in my sister. I've watched it in others, the supernatural peace that there is no comprehending except for the fact that God is real.
That's right. There's no other way.
Yeah. We have about a minute left, Victoria. I just want to pray for you, and I want to pray for everybody who's listening, who's struggling with something right now. Jesus, we are so grateful that we have this huge relief to know that we are not alone in our struggles, that you are absolutely aware of and intricately involved in every second of every moment of our lives. And you know exactly the day we're coming home to you, whether it's when we get hit by a bus or whether we die of some disease or whatever, you know. And we can find examples of all of it in the Bible. And so we just look to you and we just trust you, God. And I pray, God, for your blessing and favor, your healing and blessing, your hope, your peace, your comfort on Victoria and on every listener who's dealing with something that's just really hard and incomprehensible right now. I pray for Tammy Whitehurst. I pray for Michelle right now, another one of our speakers who they are both right now losing people they love to death. God, we just lay them in your hands and pray for their whole families right now. Death is so hard here at God. And in heaven, you say there are no more tears, no more goodbyes. And that is one of the things we most look forward to beyond just being right in your presence for eternity. Thank you for your love. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for Victoria. And thank you for this time. In Jesus' precious name, amen. Well, we love you guys. We bless you. Go have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you around. Bye.